Oh, hello there, it's Linda here from Just For Tummies. I hope you're keeping well. Now, some of you may already know this because I've written about it over the years in newsletters, may already know about my brush with chronic fatigue and depression way back in the early 1990s. So we're talking about 30 years ago now, just when I was going into my profession as a complementary health therapist. And I was very much a novice back then. I knew very little about complementary therapy. But yes, in the early 1990s, three things happened to me that just knocked me sideways. One was that my parents were separating. The second one was my husband Kevin had been made redundant, and the third one, we were moving house. And I just didn't handle these three situations very well at all. I mean, I was in my early 30s back then, and you may think, oh, well, Linda, you were a grown woman. Why did the separation of your parents affect you so much? But it did. It did affect me. I didn't handle it very well. And then on top of Kevin being made redundant and we were selling the house, it was too much stress for my body to deal with. So if you don't make time for your body will make time for you. And I developed tonsillitis. My throat is my Achilles heel. Always has been ever since I was a small girl. If ever I got stressed as a little girl or even excited, which is stress, isn't it? It's a form of stress. I would immediately start with a sore throat and sometimes it would develop into tonsillitis. So in the early 1990s, when these three major events happened all at once, I developed tonsillitis and I was really, really poorly. But the tonsillitis, it was only over a couple of days. I had a very high temperature, almost hallucinating, really, raging sore throat, could hardly swallow. But in a couple of days, I felt much better. So instead of resting for a bit longer, which I should have done, I just threw myself into work again. And I'd still got all these three major events to deal with. So about 6 months later, I just hit a brick wall. And it was literally like hitting a brick wall with the fatigue, one of the symptoms of chronic fatigue or post-viral fatigue syndrome. And if you've suffered with chronic fatigue syndrome, you will know that this is a fatigue like no other fatigue. It's not tiredness, extreme tiredness. I mean, I would be in bed, I would wake up in the morning, lying in bed, and it would take me a good 10 minutes to get out of bed, walk down the hallway to the bathroom, which would take me about another 5 minutes. It was awful, 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 crippling fatigue. And with it came the depression. And looking back, the depression came because the fatigue just affected my life so much. I couldn't work. Um, I would I couldn't walk to the end of the garden gate without getting out of breath and feeling very panicky and very anxious. And luckily, I don't have any of those symptoms now. I haven't had any of those symptoms for a long, long time. I turned to complementary therapies to help resolve my chronic fatigue, and they worked. They worked for me. But I'm always very mindful, and Kevin often reminds me as well, Linda, just be careful. Don't take too much on. Just watch your energy levels, because I'm a person who likes to get things done. I always like to have a project. If I haven't got a project on, I'm bored. Anyway, that's for me to deal with. But what I want to tell you about is how I used visualization to help me during those awful days and months that I suffered with chronic fatigue, where I would just lie in bed or I'd lie on the settee. So visualization, well, it's in the name. You visualize something, and for me, I had two particular personal visualizations. These were not visualizations that I'd read in a book. Back then, the internet was in its infancy. There was nothing on the internet about visualizations. So I developed and created my own two visualizations. And the first one I'm going to share with you now, and I've never shared these before with you. It's where I'm walking up a grassy bank. I get to the top of this banking, and before me is a valley. But this valley is completely bare, completely devoid of any trees, shrubs, grass, insects, animals, water. And so over the days and weeks with this visualization, when I entered this visualization, I've got my eyes closed, I'm lying, I'm very relaxed, it's very quiet, very calm. Each time I did this visualization and I walked up this grassy bank, I would walk into this valley, my valley, and each time I would add grass or trees or bushes or flowers. And then I would go into my visualization and I would add insects and birds and animals. And then I would add water, a river. And this river was a bright, sparkling, shimmering river. And I would go in and swim in this river, in this water. And to me, this water, that they were healing waters. And each time I entered these waters and floated and swam, I would be infused with the healing energy from the water. And then I added a sphere, a transparent sphere that hovered over the river, and I would enter this sphere and I would lie back and be suspended in the middle of this sphere, and this sphere was a healing sphere, and it would again infuse me with healing energy. And then as I began to get better, as my CFS symptoms began to improve, I would then take people into my valley and into my sphere. People I'd met, people I knew, maybe people I didn't know and didn't know me, but you just come across people, you're chatting in the coffee shop or in the supermarket, aren't you? And they say, oh, I'm not doing too well today, I'm struggling with this, that. And so I would take them without their knowledge into my valley, into the healing waters and into the healing sphere. And that was one of my visualizations. And to me, it was a very powerful visualization. My second one, a little bit different. So I would visualize myself walking into this huge room, and just imagine a cathedral, the proportions of a cathedral, like Lincoln Cathedral, where I've recently been to. So I walk into this room like a cathedral with very high ceilings, a domed roof, but the walls are not square, straight. The walls are round. It's a round room. And I walk into the center of this room, and then through the walls of this room, there appear these beings, for want of another word. And they were very tall, 7-8 feet tall. They didn't walk, they kind of shimmered towards me. They had long flowing white robes on, they had wings. I couldn't tell from looking at their faces if they were male or female. They didn't seem to have any features, it's quite blurred. But they came and they encircled me. And they unfurled their wings, and their wings unfurled over me, so it was like a canopy, and I was inside this what I call a healing circle. Now call them angels, call them spiritual beings of some kind, call them what you like. To me, they were angels, and they'd been sent to help heal me. So that was my second visualization. So I'm just thinking, we're coming up to Christmas. We can get a bit, panicky. I've got all these things to do. I'm getting stressed. I feel as though I'm losing control. I'm really anxious. I feel as though I'm getting a panic attack. If that's happening to you, then please try some visualization. Use one of mine. You're welcome to, or create your own powerful visualization. Anyway, I hope they help you. I've never shared my visualizations with you before, but I thought, why not? They helped me immensely, and I hope you try visualization and it helps you too. And thank you for listening. Bye bye.